Very pleased to welcome in my old friend John Rooke. We are game day here Saturday, and a beautiful Saturday. I don't know about where you are, John, but in Rumford, Rhode Island, it's not good and only going to get worse. How about out in Massachusetts?
Let's see. Out on the Berkeley Cranberry Bogs right now, it is pouring sheets, just waiting for it to turn into white snowflakes. I hope I can leave here and get to where I need to go today before that happens.
I trust that you can get to Providence, you get to Bob Driscoll's office, you can call a game and get home before snow. But
that's what we're hoping.
I wouldn't want to be in southern New Hampshire today. They're going to get whacked. But John, thanks very much.
Yeah.
John, first time in 31 years, a season starts where we're not together. I don't like it. I know you don't like it. I know fans know that for the Maui Invitational in the very first game at home against Fairfield, you and Joe Hassett were in literally Bob Driscoll's office. Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, the entire story, kind of got put together at a very late stage where we're trying to figure out the best way to be able to continue to bring people to games. And look, I'd be the first to admit that, the pandemic, I think everybody spooked just a little bit, not really knowing what to expect, and also trying to maintain some sense of caution as well as normalcy. It's a really difficult balance to handle. So the decision was made early in the process, especially after Providence College, as you know, Kev, had the issue with so many students getting ill during the semester and having to shut things down a couple of times, almost sending everybody home for good. They're just being extraordinarily cautious on campus. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be this way for the rest of the year, but at least to start the season, and I think for, the next week or so, we'll probably be doing it. As we said, we set up a remote studio within the Ruane Development Center where we've been able to get links to the television broadcast where we can actually get real-time stuff and get real-time effects and all that kind of stuff, to where literally our hope is that when people listen, they won't be able to tell the difference where we are, because we have natural sound, we have all this stuff. And our crew, Chris Judge, Matt Morrell, all those guys that work for us, they've done a super job in setting this situation up for us. So we are hopeful, however, that once Big East play begins, that we will actually be able to be in person in Alumni Hall. We just have to kind of carve out a little niche of space for ourselves and make sure that we're not interfering on anybody else or, leaving anybody else susceptible to potentially what we're doing.
Yeah, I think, once the students are off campus now, there's no active classes at Providence College, and really only the sports teams. I think men's and women's basketball and men's and women's hockey are the only students on campus, and they continue to test aggressively at PC, and the numbers are really low, less than 2%. Yeah, right. That's when everyone was on campus. I'm sure that it's next to nothing now. So hopefully it only gets a little better.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. So, yeah. I'll find out a little bit more actually later today, as we do this at, noontime on Saturday. I'm hoping that we'll be able to find a little bit more today about that possibility.
So enough about us, the basketball. I'm concerned, John, after seeing 4 games.
Yeah.
I think we know that Nate Watson is ready for a big year. David Duke is in position to have a really big year. After that, come one, come all. Anyone who wants to step up and play with consistency, the opportunity is certainly there. And what comes back to me, John, is throughout the summer, Providence chose to not have the kids on campus. Campus was closed. With 4 transfers, all of them important players, rotation players, they just don't have much, synchronicity, team togetherness. They need an FDU. They probably need 2 or 3 more of these before they have real games. Well, guess what? This is the last BOP game of the year.
Yeah.
Which this is a team that could use a few of these.
And they went out and got this, BOP game, as you put it, against a team that was preseason picked to win its league. So, even though they're off to a rough start, fact remains they were preseason picked to win the NEC, and so I mean that's been part of their philosophy, and that's what Brian has done. The Friar assistant coach who does all of the Brian Blaney that does the scheduling, and so they've tried to do that. Obviously, this year is unlike any other, so we're not sure how much that's going to figure into the final equation. Right now, teams just want to get to 13 games, and the rest of that is gravy because that would make them eligible for the postseason. I share the same concerns as you. I thought that maybe it would be a little bit easier to come to some kind of synchronicity, as you put it, than what we saw. But I think what we saw is when you step up in caliber of play against teams that have, a couple of really strong traits. Indiana's tough. They're Big Ten tough. Alabama can shoot the hell out of it, and they've got unbelievable athletes. And both of those teams are going to be factors in both of their leagues this year. You can't look at those teams and say they're not going to be a factor. They're going to beat people. So they're probably NCAA tournament teams. Providence does not yet measure up in that regard. So I think two things. Number one, I'm woefully disappointed in the rebounding effort of this team through the first 4 games because of, Ed Croswell and Noah Horkler's presence, but it really hasn't been so much their problem. The problem has been the Friars not sending their guard, or at least the Friar guards not rebounding. This is where they really miss a guy like Alpha Diallo, and they miss a guy like Malik White, who crashed the boards, kept the ball alive. Khalif Young, for goodness sakes. I mean, he was great on the offensive glass and just tip-backs that he didn't get statistical credit for, but he was able to, the Friars are one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the country percentage-wise a year ago. And so you think adding a guy like Croswell, who was in the top 3 in the nation in offensive rebounding percentage a year ago, that you're golden. But I think what Ed's going to have to do is he's going to have to decide what style of team he wants to be. Because the one thing that I've noticed in the first 4 games, Kevin, is that Providence is really a slower tempo team because they want to put it inside. They want to hit Nate. They want to hit Noah. They want to hit Ed. And so the tempo is going to have to be a decidedly slower pace in order to be able to take advantage of what those guys do best. And I think that's why Ed is himself at a little bit of a crossroads trying to decide what this team needs to be. And you're 100% right. They don't have the opportunity to work this out, easy dubs, so to speak, on the schedule. They don't have them. And your former colleague at the Journal, and Bill Koch, I mean, honestly, earlier today, he wrote something about, the fact that it should be URI playing today. And that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think we all know Bill's been the beat writer at URI for a number of years, but it's something that URI people are just not going to give a rest. And look, Providence didn't need to play Rhode Island. Providence never needs to play Rhode Island. And I think that's what everybody has to come to grips with. And especially this year when a Providence team is trying to find itself, what it is and who it can be, they don't need another stiff test. They just don't.
Well, we could talk for the next 15 minutes about that situation, but my take on that is Ed Cooley was pretty upfront about things. He said, I'm going to be selfish for my program.
Exactly.
This year, is it selfish and does it hurt the fans of Rhode Island, URI and PC basketball? Yes, it does. But boy, it's the right thing for his team. They need 100%. To play FDU. They need to play FDU today, Tuesday, and next Saturday, and then go into Big East play.
I agree.
Instead, they have to go to play TCU on Wednesday. That's the game that jumps out to me that the Friars don't need to fly halfway across the country to play a team that's really good. That's the spot to play Rhode Island in my eyes. Hey, but to your point, they certainly don't need Rhode Island and then TCU. They need to get up and running. And
no, they don't.
But
by the way, I'm 100% on that one. But they do that because they have the agreement with the Big East to play the Big 12. They would have played a Big 10 team if they hadn't decided just to kind of call that off for a year. There's just wasn't going to be a way for them to cram in all of the commitments that they had already made and continue to play Rhode Island. And the X factor that people don't understand here, Kevin, is that this is Providence's home game that they're losing. That is a major money deal.
Yep.
If Rhode Island was the same situation and the game was at Ryan Center this year and Rhode Island didn't want to play it, I would totally understand that. Why wouldn't you want to play that with a packed house? It's your biggest crowd of the year. Just put everything back a year so the school can take advantage of it financially next year. And that's really all we're doing. And it would be the same thing if it were Rhode Island's game.
Yeah, well, what we don't know is if, Rhode Island would have agreed to come back to Providence next year as well, to play once without fans, once with Providence. But I don't think that would have changed Ed Cooley's thinking anyways.
It would not have. And I've been told by several people off the record, and I'll go on the record with you here, but I've heard that, and I haven't confirmed this, so let me stress that. But I've been told that, no, that was not a possibility, that Rhode Island did not want to play twice in a row, in Providence. And, well, let's play. Let's keep the schedule. Okay, that's fine. But, you're telling us to give up a game that is one of our better financial games every year. Sure. And to a department that doesn't have football, it's everything.
Oh, sellouts are big. There's no two ways about it. Yeah,
it's everything.
So two guys before we wrap up.
Yeah.
AJ Reeves and Greg Gant. Two very different, they're coming from very different avenues. AJ's played a lot of basketball for the Friars, has had some good games, has had some injuries, has had some no-shows.
Yeah.
Greg Gant, sophomore, very unproven. Has played a decent amount as a freshman, never had the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Right.
Now both of those guys are just vital pieces. AJ first. What's up with him?
I don't know. I wish I had a definitive answer for you. For some reason or another, he's not getting open and clean enough looks, and I wonder, in all honesty, whether or not he's capable of doing that. I don't know if he can be the player that Providence needs him to play. He needs to be set up by the point guard, and I'm hopeful that that is something that can happen at some point. But as far as creating his own shot, I don't think that's the kind of player that AJ is, right. And that's really all that is. As far as, Greg Gant is concerned, they put him in there hoping that, he could be the kind of player on the offensive glass that Alpha was a year ago. And Greg is not bulky enough, and I think Greg likes playing on the periphery. I don't think he's a go in there, mix it up kind of guy. I would tend to believe that Providence might be better suited starting either Horkler or Croswell and bringing an energy guy, a change of pace guy like Gant off of the bench. That's just my own opinion. Yep. That may end up happening. And again, I'm not paid to coach the team. Ed Cooley's paid to coach the team. Right. But I can offer you opinion based on what I think will work in the upcoming Big East. And I think you need to have some size. And I think this team's getting hammered on the backboards. And if they don't do something about it, they're going to, because they're not adept at putting the ball in the hole, and they don't have a drop-dead, knock-it-down shooter. Let's just face it, if they don't have it,
no, they don't.
Then they have to survive on the offensive glass. So you got to fix the offensive glass problem first, because you can't do anything about the shooting problem now. I hope that AJ has a better year. I hope that he develops. I hope that he continues to, he's a streaky guy, but that's just the way it's going to be. But you can physically and actively do something about the offensive rebounding, and I think they need to make a change there, in my own humble opinion.
Yeah, and the proven rebounder, proven collegiate rebounder in the program is Noah Horkler. Well, Horkler averaged 9 rebounds a game. He can rebound the ball. We know that.
True, but Horkler also came from the Atlantic Sun Conference.
Yeah,
and Noah's got to realize that he had a definitive advantage in that league, whereas he's going to face guys like him and better every night.
Yeah. Yep.
The guy that I'm telling you that I think is the X factor is Croswell, because Croswell was third in the nation in offensive rebound percentage last year in the Atlantic 10. Mm-hmm. That's a guy that can go put the ball in the bucket from close range and keep it alive for you. Croswell would be my guy. He'd be my choice in that regard. I hope that he can pick up the nuances of what Ed wants him to do, and that may be why we haven't seen him as much as we thought we would see him.
Yeah, he struck me as being a step and a half, 2 steps slow against the elite players that they saw in North Carolina, and that could be too. It's a different story when it's a different story when you have to step up against guys who are bigger, faster, and stronger than you.
Yeah, and the other thing the other guys have to realize, whether it's Horkler, Croswell, even Watson, is that when they have the ball, we noticed this against Alabama the other night, Kevin. They have the ball. There were 3 white jerseys surrounding Nate. He's got to learn to throw the ball back out. Whether or not they can knock down an open jumper, that's for somebody else. But Nate can't go 1-on-3.
Sure.
Horkler can't go 1-on-3. Croswell can't go 1-on-3. But that's what happens because opposing teams are learning, hey, when the ball goes in, it's a black hole in there. It ain't coming out.
Well, and they're also shooting 23% from the 3. I'm double teaming the post too. Yep.
There's no question on double team in the post. So you got to figure out a way to retool the offense and figure out a way to get some 15-foot jump shots as opposed to 22-foot jump shots. That's really how I think Ed has to tool it right now.
And Jared Bynum, I've been impressed so far. I think he's only has 2 or 3 turnovers in 4 games. That said, he can't make a 3-pointer. We haven't seen him make a 3-pointer.
Yep.
He can push the pace. I do think they have a push the pace lineup. It would not include, a Nate Watson or an Ed. So, but we'll see. John, pack up, go get a win for the Friars. Really appreciate it. And
pack a lunch today? Is that what you're telling me?
Pack a lunch. Don't pack a dinner though. I like your chances to get home, but appreciate you helping out Kevin Max Sports. Thanks very much.
Anytime, Kevin. I'm here. Just give me a call.
See you soon, bud.
You got it.